Hey everyone, Caleb from Antique Book Collective, and today I'm getting to you guys with a very interesting video where I actually run an experiment testing out a whole bunch of different oils, oil combinations, all that sort of stuff for antique book covers that are leather. Of course, you're not supposed to do this with non-leather covers, and also there's some people that say you shouldn't do this at all. However, having seen enough antique books in my day, having dealt with enough antique books in my day, and having seen what kind of improvements treating your covers well can do, I strongly disagree with people that say that you should not treat your covers with the proper oils and not to do it properly. Of course, there can be damage, and there is damage that can be caused when you do it improperly. However, guys, let's face it, you do anything improperly, you're going to do damage. So with that said, I think that tossing out the baby with the bathwater, saying no more oiling leather books is a big fat no-no. Yes, there are people that shouldn't do that. I don't personally think you should do it all the time with your books. Of course you can. However, it's really not necessary. That being said, though, there are some books that can definitely benefit from it, and I will be oiling all the books that I think need it from now on, because having seen the sort of glow up, if you will, of what some of these books were compared to what they could become, there's no way on earth that I would stop oiling these covers, honestly, guys. So with that said, though, guys, I'm going to show you 4 of the oils that I used, and then I'm going to save the last one as a little bit of a teaser, if you guys will, for later on in the video. But with that said, just going to show you guys these right off the bat. I'm going to link to these in the bottom down in the show notes, comment section. Also, I'll probably put all the different places with where you guys can get these, all on Amazon. Those are going to be affiliate links, so you guys can help my channel by getting those. But I'm going to share with you guys just what I used and what I would recommend once I go through all these and just sort of explain things as we go on. But first off, linseed oil. So this one, guys, I did raw linseed oil. I didn't really have too much of a reason for doing that, except I didn't want to deal with doing a whole lot of stuff with the boiled linseed oil, because some boiled ones add certain chemicals. I didn't want to deal with that. I wanted just the nice raw stuff. Raw stuff, guys, when you do the raw linseed oil, it can take a whole lot longer for it to dry. In fact, I have now seen that with this particular book that I did it on. It took stinging forever. But linseed oil, it's a tried and true one that people love. We'll see if I recommend it in the end, but a little sneak peek, I don't recommend using it straight. I did that for one test. Next one is Neatsfoot Oil, which I think was really cool. I really enjoyed this one. Not a whole lot to it. So on to the next one. Lanolin, guys, that's another one that's really good. I'm not going to get too much into that. Next one is Mink Oil. Also love this one. Something interesting about these guys is the Neatsfoot, the lanolin, and the mink all come from animals. They're animal products, whereas the linseed oil, it's linseed. Here we go. It came from a seed, which means a plant. So this is the only one that doesn't involve animals, but that being said, we're dealing with leather here, guys. Leather came from an animal in the beginning, so from that standpoint, there's a better chance that the ones that come from animals might be a little bit better for an animal product, but that's just a little sneak peek on what we will actually see in a little bit. But with that said, though, guys, I'm actually going to show you all the different books. But before I do, let me show you just the back cover of this one. This is what the books started out as. I actually did an experiment where I actually layered all the different oils. As you guys can see, here's all the different ones that I tested, the different combinations. And you can't tell a whole lot of a difference right here on the front cover, which I think is interesting. There is a difference that you can definitely see when you're actually comparing one book to the next. But all on the same cover, it's a little harder to see. I mean, if you are actually in person, you can actually see a little bit of the lines, because I did do it in lines just to try to make it so it was really obvious. But it actually is not that obvious, these lines. But with that said, that's just this one right here. I'm showing you guys the back cover because this is just the untreated version of this book. This one actually is a little bit better than the other ones. But if you guys look really closely right here, you can see that the leather, it's like peeling up, it's flaking away. It's not in very good shape. This leather, guys, was it was very abused in its day. But that's that one right here. So I'm actually going to take you guys through. So remember this right here. I actually have the list of all the ones I used, so I'm going to start you guys down at the bottom right here, and we're going to work our way up. That's not in any order of what my favorite was, and I'm not going to really comment on which one's my favorite until later on in this video, but I am going to show you guys just the sort of consistency of the color, all those sorts of things of every sort of inch of these books, just so you guys can really see what each one did. I applied these as similarly as I could. However, Neatsfoot oil and linseed oil, since those are both liquids, I was not able to apply them quite the same as I was doing with this one and this one. And when I did the combination mixes of the different oils, I did it with a base of this one or this one, which are both more solid of oils, and then one of the more fluid ones. I did that test because it's sort of just what I have either heard other people using, or it's things that I just wanted to test out since I had these, and it was ones that I thought could work or would work, and at the end of the day, I really did appreciate a lot of the efforts and a lot of the results that I did. So first off, though, we have Mink Oil. So guys, the Mink, I really enjoyed. I guess I will do some commentary on it. I really enjoyed how just consistent the coloring is. With some of the ones that I did, the coloring was not quite as consistent with all of them, especially not when I first did it. Once it dried a little bit, it definitely did dry to be a lot more uniform, all these different ones. And the reason why you had some color differences was probably because I put a little too much oil on one place, a little lacking in others, you know, that sort of thing. That would cause some of the color variations, that sort of thing. None of it is terrible, but it is something to keep in mind, guys. Additionally, when you guys are applying oil to your books, you're going to have some that, wow, that darkened up a whole lot, that looks terrible now, and then it will actually dry and it'll actually get a little bit lighter, a lot more close to what it originally was. But with that said though, guys, here's the Mink Oil, back to that, and here is the comparison to the other one. As you guys can see, I hope it comes through, honestly, there's quite the color difference. The Mink Oil, it really restored a lot of the redness of the original leather, which I really enjoy. Of course, it also moisturized it very nicely, which, guys, another reason why I highly recommend that you guys oil your leather cover books is because the hinges right here, when you don't oil it, this hinge right here where the cover bends, that breaks down. I mean, think about it. You have a dry piece of leather and you're folding it, it's going to crack. So it's really nice having it oiled because it really like restores some of the life into the hinge. So that is the Mink Oil right there. So with that said, on to just the straight linseed oil. Remember, guys, I said that one was probably my least favorite result. It does have a very rich color. Interestingly enough, it still smells like linseed oil. The other ones, they still have a little bit of a scent, but this one, the linseed oil, I think is the most smelly of them all. But let me also add, guys, if you do it improperly, you can actually get oil that seeps through. Luckily, guys, this is not necessarily my fault, and it's not necessarily because of oil, but this is sort of something that you would see. As you guys can see, it's darker around here on the leather, so potentially if you over oil it, it can potentially like soak through, that sort of thing, and cause some damage. That was not me that did it. If it is oil damage, I personally think it's probably the glue, but I don't know for sure. But with that said, here's the linseed oil. This is just straight linseed on this particular cover. So the front and back looks fine. I mean, there's some splotchiness around the spine. On both sides, actually, it has the blotchiness. I'm hoping that it'll actually dry out and not be as drastic of a change of color. In fact, let me grab the Mink really quick to just sort of show you guys. But it's actually surprising, the color difference that you see between these two. I mean, it is night and day difference. Personally, in retrospect, I almost wish that I didn't do straight linseed oil, but I was doing it for the test for you guys. If you do have a book that you do want to darken the color up on a whole lot, linseed definitely is the way to go. That's just the front and back cover though, guys. Here's the spine. I mean, that one changed color out of the wazoo. So there's that spine against the back cover. But here's the weird one, guys. There's the spine between the two. I mean, this one like doesn't even look like the same set almost because it's such a dark color thanks to the linseed oil. And I did know before I did it that linseed does darken up leather a chunk, but I really wanted to test this out for you guys so you guys can sort of not make the same mistake. Of course, it's not really a mistake. I did it on purpose. But it is definitely something to keep in mind. Do not do straight linseed oil on your leather covers unless you want to darken them. Of course, there are people who say don't do any damage to your books. That's part of the rule for preserving anything is do no damage, do no harm, that sort of thing. That is something that you sort of could do with the linseed oil. In addition to that, guys, as I was mentioning, if you over apply your oil, you can cause the damage, but also with the liquid ones, guys, it is easy and a half to over apply the oil because it's a fluid. It's just going to flow. So I would recommend when you guys are doing this, and I'm going to do a whole video on just how to apply oil shortly because this is such an important topic and it's something I've learned a whole lot about. But if you guys are oiling your books and you're doing the liquid ones, which I personally would not recommend, do not just like put it on your finger and apply it. Put it onto a towel, or preferably one of these cotton rounds. I really enjoyed these cotton rounds. This is just from my local, no, it's not from my local one. Gasp, I'm cheating on Winco. You guys can buy them at any local grocery store though, really easy. Oh, sorry. Cotton swabs are also really nice. I like them for just doing the edges of a book. So by that I mean just like the edge of the cover right here. It's nice to have this to apply it because the cotton rounds are a little large and you don't want to get that stuff onto your pages. But again, we're going to go over an entire video on how to do that later. So with that said though, on to the next book. We have lanolin on this one. Lanolin, guys, that's, that's Mink. That's this one right here. So this is our first more of a solid greasy book oil that you can use. Forgive me, this one does have a loose spine. A lot of the ones in this set do because they were just mistreated out of the wazoo in their day. But as you guys could see, the lanolin, it worked very well. Actually, I lied. That's not our first solid one. Our first solid one's Mink. Sorry. But yeah, as you guys could see, very consistent throughout the whole thing. It's looks very good. I'm very pleased with how the lanolin worked. Lanolin, guys, that comes from sheep. It comes from the oil they secrete to keep their wool very nice and for their skin, that sort of stuff. So as such, it sort of makes sense that it'll work very well for conditioning book leather. With that said, though, on to our final just straight oil, no mixes. This one's Neatsfoot Oil, which I really enjoyed as well. It is a little bit of a iffy one for me as well, because it is like the linseed oil. Forgive me, guys. Because it is a liquid one, it is pretty easy to over apply, and it did darken things up a lot, but I did really enjoy it a whole lot more than the lanolin. And feeling the book afterwards, guys, it doesn't feel as tacky. A lot of these books, it's been over a week since I did all this, because I wanted to let it sit, let the color set in a little bit more so you guys can really see how it's going to look when it's done. This one, though, it's the least tacky, I would say, of all of them. I mean, I feel it, and it does not feel like I have oiled the books. All the other ones, they have a little bit of tackiness to them. So from that standpoint, the Neatsfoot Oil is definitely a very nice one for me. However, as I mentioned, there is some darkening around here, and that is just the nature of using the liquid oils for it. You're going to have some places where it's going to get darker. And then here's the spine right here. The spine's a little bit loose, but it's still holding on pretty nicely. Honestly, guys, I was afraid this one was going to pop off, but now that I have applied the oil, the leather is like bendable enough that it's not going to pop off anytime on its own, which is very nice. I would highly recommend doing the oil, guys. If you have anything that it's like crispy and crumbling as you're touching the leather, put some oil on it, guys. You can save some books. I have some. I actually have them drying in front of me. These particular books, guys, you touch them and you have your hands just covered in leather powder. However, because I was able to put the oil on them and I was doing it very carefully, I brought those books back from the brink. Like, I straight up was like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to sell these. But after oiling it, it's like, wow, these things, like, it was actually fluffy. That's how dry the leather was. It was fluffy and flaking off. I oiled it down, and now, guys, it actually has the original leather texture, you know, like you guys have seen, like leather purses and whatnot, how it has a little bit of bumps and a little bit of this and that. It actually has that texture again, and guys, it's like amazing seeing the difference of what it was. It was absolute turd, and I actually have photos for you guys, but it was absolutely terrible, and then changing it into absolutely amazing and being like, wow, this actually looks sort of new now. So I thought that was really cool. But with that said, though, guys, those were just the different oils on their own, the 4 books that I've already shown you. Now I'm going to show you different mixes, and I'm going to tell you guys the mixes that I did. The final one that I'm going to show you guys of these particular mixes is one that I've actually heard recommended by several people, but it's also not one of my favorites. So my favorite one, spoiler alert, is actually one that has the mink, but I really enjoyed the ones with the lanolin as well. I think the absolute winner for me was using one of the liquid oils with the solid ones like this. Using them all on their own is okay, but mixing them together, some of these mixes, guys, I adore. So first things first, we have lanolin and linseed oil. So yeah, as you guys can see, really nice uniform color. I really enjoy the color on this one. Honestly, it's one of my favorites. It sort of loses me at the spine. The spine still looks a little washed out. So there is that. I mean, it's definitely not the end of the world. It still looks absolutely amazing, and it's so much better than it was. We do have a little bit of tackiness, as I mentioned. The only one that didn't come out sort of tacky was just straight Neatsfoot Oil, which I think, again, is rather interesting. On to this next one. We have, lanolin and Neatsfoot Oil. I mislabeled it, sorry guys. But this one, it's barely tacky. So again, guys, this one has a little bit of linseed oil in it. Sorry, what in the world? Neatsfoot oil in it. And it's interesting because with a little bit of Neatsfoot, it's not as tacky. I think that's one of the most interesting things about this test. Forgive me, it does have some fluff on it from the cotton. But that is something I thought was quite interesting. So here's this book right here. And again, it's not very tacky at all. I mean, there's a tiny bit, but it's rather smooth. I mean, you guys actually heard it squeak a little bit ago. It's pretty good. Like, I would personally use this one in my library, this particular mix. Interestingly enough, I'm going to share with you guys my favorite one right now. My favorite one was the Mink Oil with the Neatsfoot Oil. Personally, that's my favorite based on the coloring that it did and the feel. So it's interesting, though, that the Neatsfoot Oil, it's an absolute winner. Like, honestly, for me, the linseed oil, I'm not a big fan, especially with how much it darkened that book, but guys, the Neatsfoot Oil, love that one, would recommend that one. But again, don't use it straight. You do have some issues with that. Next up, though, we have the Mink and the Neatsfoot Oil. Remember, guys, I just mentioned that one's my favorite. It is a little bit tackier. It's not too tacky, but and by tacky, guys, I just mean there's a little bit of stick to it. So if you hear that, you got just a tiny bit of stick going on. Of course, that is something that's going to go away with time. That's one of the reasons why I left them out to dry as well. When I was drying them for the past week, I wanted to get rid of some of that tackiness because when it was first done, they were quite tacky. So with that said though, guys, here's this book right here. This one, I know it doesn't look like the most uniform of color throughout the whole thing. However, in its defense, the reason why you have some non-uniformity in the coloring is just because the cover did have, some rips in it. For the areas that are not ripped, though, it is quite uniform. It's quite beautiful. And I love the coloration that it has. So we're just going to compare this one to what it used to be. So it did darken things up a little bit, which I think darkening up is actually a pretty good thing. Because some of these books, guys, that you'll come across, you'll think, oh, it's going to stay that color. It's supposed to be like some washed out, terrible yellow. And then you put the oil on and it's like, oh, no, it's brown now. Guys, have you ever seen an actual yellow cow? No, you see brown cows. So you want your stuff to be a little bit brown. You don't want the really pale yellow stuff that shows that it's dry. So, oh no, it darkened it up. That's sort of the point, guys. So that one's my favorite. I'm going to admit it. And I'm going to show you guys a few other things as we go on. But with that said, on to this next one right here. So this is Mink Oil and some linseed oil. This one definitely did not do terrible whatsoever. Honestly, I sort of like the way that this one preserved the coloration of the book. I mean, it definitely is a little bit closer to what it originally was. So there's that compared to that. It's quite similar. It's quite good. I really like it. Of course, the spine is rather faded. The only one that really darkened the spine really well was the linseed oil. That one darkened it up a whole lot. We also have the mink oil, looking at it down here on the bottom. Sorry, guys. And also, of course, my favorite one, which was the mink and Neatsfoot oil. Those darkened up the spine nicely, which compensated for the sun bleaching that happened. I'm going to show you guys that in a little bit. But that's just sort of something that I saw. With that said, though, on to the final combination one. We have lanolin and linseed oil. So guys, all the ones that I showed you before now, those were 80-20. I really wanted to do 80-20 because the liquid ones, they just were so runny. So I wanted to test out 80-20, 80-20, 80-20 because I thought it would be a nice complement to the solid. And it absolutely was. However, this one, guys, it's the lanolin and linseed oil. But I've heard a lot of people say 60-40, do 60-40. That is the best one for it. Well, I'm looking at it. It's not terrible, but it's not my favorite. So guys, here is 60-40 for lanolin and linseed oil. It's not bad whatsoever. On the spine, you can definitely see that the spine at the top and around here did take a little bit more of the oil than the other spots, so it is a little bit darker. But it's not bad. I mean, whoop-de-doo, but I don't think it's to the point that everyone's like, wow, it's the best thing ever. Personally, take it or leave it for me. For me, I'm not too fond of what it did to the spine. Could that be a little bit of my fault? Absolutely. All of this is all my fault all the time. But it is something definitely to keep in mind. With that said, though, guys, I would like to also mention I am doing another video on how to apply it. But something that I'd like to mention right now is when I was doing oil on the spine, I actually did do oil over these little, I'm not entirely sure what they are called, but the different parts right here, which it's sort of like a paper that they put over the thing to put down the information. I did oil that as well because I was like, okay, there's leather underneath it. That needs some love, and I don't know for sure if this is leather as well, but I did go over it, and when I did, it really made the colors pop a little bit. It really brought a little bit more life into it. It allowed it to bend a little bit more, so I did keep doing that because I thought it really was making a very nice change. But with that said, though, guys, I'm just going to pile these up right in front of you guys. I'd love to have a shelf behind me that I could do it on, but for some reason some idiot put books all over the shelf. Imagine that. You know what, guys? I'm going to take the books off that shelf for you. So as I do that, guys, let me just keep on talking about book stuff. So just setting these aside really quick. But as I was mentioning already, guys, all these are ones that I saw that other people have done, that people have recommended, all that sort of stuff. But then there's one thing that I did that people didn't recommend. Oh, I didn't take off enough books yet. And that one, I did see a couple recommendations just for leather in general, but I didn't see anyone say, oh yeah, you absolutely should do this particular one for books. I saw one or two things from people that weren't very official. But these people, besides doing lanolin, linseed oil, Neatsfoot oil, all those sorts of ones, they said Vaseline. Here's one done with Vaseline, guys. And I know I teased you and said I'd show you in a little bit. Here's a little bit. The Vaseline actually kept the color quite similar to what the book was beforehand, which is absolutely cool. Some people would definitely love that. For me, I think it's really cool. I don't know if I'd keep using Vaseline, however. For me, using the Vaseline sort of felt like a cheater move. It sort of felt like I wasn't doing it right because, let's face it, animals don't really have Vaseline coming out of their skin. They have stuff more like lanolin or mink oil, you know? So using Vaseline, it's like, oh, that doesn't seem proper, but let's face it. If your lips are chapped, someone's either going to give you some chapstick, or if you have an old-fashioned grandma, she might give you some Vaseline for it. And the Vaseline definitely worked. And I was quite surprised, actually, with how well it worked. So with that said, though, guys, I'm just going to stack all these books right here so you can really sort of see. I know it's in the background, but you'll totally see the color differences as I'm sort of stacking them up. It's actually quite surprising. Again, my absolute favorite, if I had to just pick one that I would keep using, it would be Mink Oil and Neatsfoot Oil. So I will, when I'm linking to all the different things, I will be sure to show you guys that those are my particular favorite ones. But honestly, I would be happy to keep buying all the ones that I have right here. I don't know if I'd buy Vaseline to do more Vaseline of, but these guys, absolute winners. I would keep using them. In fact, I've kept using them on several books since I've actually done my original experiment. With the findings that I had just from the original experiment, guys, I continued doing all the different things. I mean, from those original experiments, I let it sit a few days, and I was like, okay, that one right there is my favorite, that one's my favorite, that one's my favorite. In fact, I had my whole family, and I'm like, okay, guys, show me which ones your favorite are based on everything that you can see right here. Which ones do you like for keeping the original color? Which one do you like based on the color it's done? All that sort of stuff. We all did comparisons, and believe it or not, we actually agreed on a lot of the different ones, and we also agreed that straight linseed oil was absolutely terrible. So guys, please do not do straight linseed oil on your books. You're just going to do more harm than good. It's not great. Right off the bat though, guys, this one's color right here, that one's my favorite, and it also, as you can see, I mean, it's the only one that really darkened it up nicely. Of course, we still have a couple more to go, but I just really wanted to highlight that one right here. That's my Mink and Neatsfoot Oil. This one right here is just Neatsfoot Oil. You guys will see it in a second. See that color difference? The Neatsfoot Oil really darkens up the spine very nicely. I was very happy with that. So heavy! I'm kidding, it's not that heavy, but it's weird to bend over that way. But I know I don't have enough room to keep stacking these, but guys, here are the final ones. I could put them right here for you guys to see as well. As you can see, the linseed oil one, it's basically black compared to the other ones. It's definitely not something I would continue doing, not something I'd continue using straight. However, sort of watered down with the other oils, it definitely worked out well. However, guys, I want to get back to this original test book that I did the different stripes of the different ones. Just looking at it like this, you can barely see the stripes. I mean, there are some stripes, but let's face it, the color difference between all these is not huge. So based on that, the only thing I really want to base things off of is the spine and the application and other things like that, because let's face it, the end product of the actual front cover, it's not too terribly different. It's like, okay, I can take it or leave it, I don't care which one. So that's why I'm actually showing you guys so much with the spines, and these are just sort of my favorite spines. The other ones are okay, but not really what I recommend using. I recommend using a combination of 2 different oils, and not just 2 liquid oils. I'm talking like a liquid oil and then a solid oil. So with that said though, guys, just going to open this one up up again, sorry. So this is treated, this is not. You could see the color difference. It's night and day. But with that said though, guys, again, you could see the difference from here to not treated, but the biggest difference that you see when you're doing these books is in the spines. So based on the spines, I wanted to get something that matched the spine to the cover the best, the one that darkened up the spine the most, because guys, spines get sun bleached because the spines are exposed to the sun. As such, I want to darken those up. I want to see them get back closer to the original colors. Of course, you're not going to get it 100%, but you want to get one that's closer. And guys, the Mink and Neatsfoot Oil, so 80% Mink Oil, that's just this right here. This one's Mink Oil Paste, and 20% Neatsfoot Oil. That is the absolute win for me based on the spine color. The other ones, they do look good, especially this one on the top, which is actually just straight Neatsfoot Oil. So, sorry, just straight Mink Oil. I lied. Wait, no, I lied again. That's not it. It's not Mink. I'm pulling it out. Straight Neatsfoot Oil. There we go. Sorry, guys. As I was saying, though, you have all the different ones. these are the best ones for the color matching the front cover. Based on that, I'd have to say that you gotta get Neatsfoot Oil if you want to have your oil on your books be the best that it can be. Have it so it actually matches. Have it so it's not stinking ugly as everything. Because guys, when you have it not match, it does look a little ugly. It does look sun bleached. It does have its issues. Of course, each oil has its own things as well. Some are nicer to spread than others. Honestly, guys, if we're talking about just spreading the oil, lanolin is my favorite one to spread. It is so soft, so gooey, so awesome. And if I had to choose a second placed pick, I would use lanolin and Neatsfoot Oil. These two together were very good as well. However, for me, Mink Oil was absolutely my favorite. So guys, Mink Oil usually is a little bit more solid. So as you guys can see right there, a little more solid. This one, generally guys, Mink Oil, it doesn't have great scent. I don't have my Mink Oil that I use on my boots. However, fun thing guys, I do have my great grandpa's Mink Oil. He was a logger, so there's that one. Got that one back there. But guys, Mink Oil, I got it for my boots. I love it on my boots. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to test it on the cover. In addition to that, I saw several recommendations from lots of people that do antique book things that Mink Oil is pretty good. Having seen this, I would absolutely agree. Mink Oil is an amazing choice. So a lot of people also say Neatsfoot Oil, including a lot of veterans and whatnot that were in charge of leather things. Neatsfoot Oil is an absolute win as well. Very happy with that. But for me, guys, again, the combination of these two, absolute win for me. I'm not going to say linseed oil was terrible. It definitely has its place. Personally, I do like Neatsfoot Oil more than the linseed oil, but all these sort of do have their own pros and cons to them. Personally, again, guys, I would continue buying all of these. I like the Neatsfoot Oil for getting like the leather a little more limber in the first like inning of the oiling of sort of things. So like for the hinge of these books, guys, some of these hinges, it's like, okay, if I look at this book wrong, it's going to rip off. So I really enjoy the Neatsfoot Oil just to like just start an application. Maybe you can water it down with a little bit of Mink Oil, but just for the hinge, guys, it was so nice just putting a little bit of this on it because it like immediately changed things. Whereas the Mink Oil and the lanolin, since they were a little more solid, it took a little bit longer for the oil to sort of set in and start doing its thing. The liquid ones were able to do it a whole lot faster. My preference again for the liquid ones is the Neatsfoot Oil. Before I go on any longer though, guys, I'm sure some of you guys are like, oh, Caleb's just trying to sell stuff. All these together, guys, were like $30. If you guys have to just pick two, again, I would pick Mink Oil and Neatsfoot Oil, which would take you to like $15. So it's really not the end of the day. It's not a whole lot of money. If you guys buy the stuff through the affiliate links, I will make like 15 cents. You guys got to buy like 100 pounds of it for me to make some good money off of it. But with that said though, guys, this isn't just a money grab sort of thing. This is literally an experiment I did for you guys. So with that said, I actually have some before and after photos, all that sort of stuff for you guys. So with that said, actually excuse me because I am going to show you guys right now. So be with you guys back in the screen share in a little bit. I'll be in the corner. See you guys then. All right, so I'm back. So guys, right here, just right off the bat, I wanted to show you guys all the different books and how they looked once they were all done. So guys, here is the shot right here. So here's just all the different books. In the foreground, as you guys can see, you have the one that I did all the different colors on. If you guys look closely, you can actually see the different stripes. The stripes were a lot more obvious because these photos that I have right here are all like shortly after, like a couple minutes after I actually put all the oil on the books. So in the foreground, you have all the different ones I tested, and then in the background, you guys can actually see what the books originally looked like. I have two untreated books in the back. Here is a closer up shot of the original one that I did that has all the different stripes. You guys can actually see those stripes a little more obviously in this photo. Here is another shot of just a few of the books. I believe that's, I don't actually remember for sure which one that is. Nope, it's the linseed oil. I was able to zoom in. That's the linseed oil one in the foreground, the first one that you guys see that has all the different dark blotches on it. Again, guys, that's because the linseed oil, especially because it is the raw linseed oil, as I mentioned already. The boiled linseed oil does evaporate a little bit faster. It does dry a little bit faster. If you guys do use the boiled linseed oil, though, guys, make sure there's no added chemicals, or if they do, make sure that they don't add any acidity or basicness to the actual thing, because acid and basic stuff is not good for your leather. With that said, here's another shot of the books. In the background, again, you guys can see what the books originally looked like. If you guys look at these colors, like the untreated ones, they look like ghosts almost compared to the treated ones that look, they don't look like a 100-something-year-old book. The ones in the background, those things look every year that they are. Here's another shot of all the ones. This one, I try to get every single book in it. I thought it was a pretty good shot. You guys, again, on the right side, you have the 2 untreated ones, and on the left, you have the treated ones. As you guys can see, this one really does a good job of showing the different colors that these things are when you first do them. When you look at them like this, it's like, oh wow, those are not ever going to look the same, but as you guys can see, they look quite similar once they've dried out for a while. So do not be too alarmed about that. They do dry out into a similar color. Of course, try to make sure that you use the same oil across all the different books for a particular set, because there are still variations. As you guys can see, look at the spines, there are variations. With that said, here is another shot. So guys, remember that those books that I told you that like you touched them, the leather came off, they looked powdery, all that sort of stuff? So here's those 2 books. Guys, you guys can pause this video right now so you can really take these things in. The photo honestly doesn't do a justice for how powdery the leather on these were, but it was pretty stinking bad. So on the right side you have the one that I treated, and then on the left side you have the one that's untreated. And just to sort of like prove to you guys that it does darken up that much, you actually see a little dark spot on the right side of the cover of the light colored one. That is what it looks like when you put just a little bit of oil. That was just like one little drag of my finger of oil on it, just to sort of like show how much of a difference it makes. Guys, night and day difference. And now I have them all dried out. They're sitting in front of me a short ways, and guys, they look so much better. They look so much healthier of leather. It is absolutely amazing. There is no way on God's beautiful green earth that he gave us, I mean, there's no way I would not put oil on those books 100 more times if it changed from absolutely sad leather like that into what it is now, where it's like, wow, I actually touched this book and I don't feel like I'm ruining it. So with that said though, guys, that is it for this particular video. I hope that it was helpful for you guys, showing you guys all the differences, what can happen for these books if you oil them, if you treat them right, if you make sure that they are conditioned and well cared for, versus just leaving them out to rot. The reason, guys, why you want to oil these, and I will be making several other videos on this, guys, because it's so important, but the reason why you want to do it is leather, just like your skin, guys, it dries out. If you're in a dry room, your skin dries out. Well, guys, your leather dries out as well. That's just a fact of life. Some people, a lot of people actually, won't oil their books anymore. They say, oh, it does more harm than good. I'm going to get into that in another video most likely, but guys, sometimes it does more harm by not caring for them at all. Of course, you don't want to over oil it. There are damages that can happen if you put too much oil on, or if you do it maybe too often. But guys, when you're dealing with books like this that have never been oiled and are just falling apart because it is so dry, obviously put bleeping oil on it. If you don't put the oil on it, it's just going to keep chipping away until it falls apart. You want to make sure that it stays a little limber. You want to have it so it doesn't crack whenever you open it. Guys, these are books that you open and close. You want to be able to open and close it just like your door. Are you going to stop putting oil on your door if it starts squeaking, if it gets hard to open, or are you just going to leave it shut forever? You're going to oil it, guys. Your book is the same way. Oil it. Don't go overboard whatsoever. You'll start staining stuff and ruining stuff, and there is a way to do it properly, ways to do it improperly. I'm going to make a video, guys, on how to properly oil your books, how to properly condition your books, all that sort of stuff. I'm going to go over that. However, that's for another video at another time. This video right now, guys, is already long enough. In fact, I probably will make a Q&A video for this, guys, once I'm all done releasing the different videos that I'm doing on oil, because I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot of different questions. I know I had a lot of questions when I first started getting into it. But with that said and done, though, guys, I hope this little series is going to be helpful for you guys. I hope that you guys really enjoy it. I hope it opens your guys' eyes, because it really opened mine when I first started doing this and saw, wow, these books went from absolute trash to this actually looks beautiful. So with that said and done, though, guys, I hope this is helpful. If so, please be sure to drop a like, drop a comment, ask all the stinking questions you guys want. This is very important. Anyone else that knows stuff about this, please be sure to chime in as well, answer a few questions for me as well. It'd really be appreciated. But with that said and done, though, guys, thank you for watching. Check out one of my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.